la fábrica, no!
Dzień dobry.
Dzień dobry.
Jak tam?
Bardzo dobrze. Very well. All fine.
Super.
I hope you're fine too.
Life is good, life is good. We are happy to have you back. We had Magda here like a year ago for the Ziemia, or In the Name of episode, a Polish movie from 2013. So I believe you are the first reappearing guest. So
Oh, that's
yeah.
I'm honored.
Well, in that case, you are just not counting the entire Bond marathon, which you have been thumping up here on the podcast, God knows how many times.
I am aware of this. Tom is in a kind of a special situation because he is doing all the James Bond films that you can hear every Thursday of the last.
He's not counted as a guest or a human being, for that matter.
No, he is counted as something much more. Henrik, my dear co-host, how you been?
Been busy, been gold, been kind of a hectic all around, but still here.
Still here. We're starting to get to some kind of a veteran territory in a sense. Well, it's gonna be funny to listen to this after 25 years, but if you're going to stick with me. It's been quite a while. We started this in 2018 in August, if memory serves.
Somewhere, around that corner. It was the summer times.
Yeah, every bloody week since. Still here. Still here.
So congratulations for doing it for so long.
Well, thank you. I guess that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it did net us the right to do that self-masturbation 50th anniversary episode, which was a nightmare. And nobody has liked that one.
Magda, to change gears, what's the film of the night, Magda?
Film of the night is Ziemia obiecana. It's the Polish title, but the English title is The Promised Land. The biblical reference is pretty much justified. The film is directed by famous Polish director Andrzej Wajda.
Indeed, one of the Polish classics.
One of the Polish classics, which are kind of renowned worldwide as well. For example, Martin Scorsese was talking about Andrzej Wajda's masterpieces, like I think Camel or The Generation, about Second World War experience, Ashes and Diamonds, about post-war experience.
Great film.
Yes, Martin Scorsese appreciated a lot the whole work of Andrzej Wajda. He got an Oscar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He was a nominee for films like Katyń, Men of Iron, Maids of Wilko, and The Promised Land, of course, which we are talking about today.
For our listeners, I can wholeheartedly, it's a really dark film, of course, but Katyń is something that you should watch, dear listener. It's about the Stalin's mass executions of Poles in Russia, in Katyń.
Yes, exactly. Quite dark part of Polish history during the Second World War.
Yeah, also a very dark chapter on the director's personal life, since his father was, as I've come to understand, was murdered by the Soviets in the same massacre.
Yes, it was kind of a part of personal family history for Andrzej Wajda as well, making this movie, Katyń.
Yeah, Andrzej Wajda lived a long life. He was with us until 2016, lived until to his 90s, born in the northeastern town of Suwałki, which is in the Lithuanian border region, is it 20 kilometers from the border?
It's also the coldest place in Poland.
Oh yeah, because of the altitude.
Yes, considering the average temperatures from there.
Yeah. And he has also made the film adaptation of Pantadeusz,
Exactly.
called Pantadeusz, The Last Foray in Lithuania, a film from 1999.
Yes.
Pantadeusz is something that probably most of our listeners will not know, but it's an epic poem from the Polish poet, writer, philosopher Adam Mickiewicz, kind of like a national treasure of Poland that everybody knows of inside of Poland.
Yes, but it starts with Lithuania, my countryside. So as for a Polish national poem, it's pretty funny.
Yeah, true.
Like epic poem, let's say.
Yeah, Andrzej Wajda is very much into turning national treasures into film adaptations because The Promised Land is originally as well a novel.
Yes.
The film is based on a book by Władysław Reymont, or maybe you want to give the pronunciation as well for this.
Władysław Raymond, you did it well.
Okay, thanks. Władysław Reymont is a Nobel laureate, and it's seen as one of his most important works, The Promised Land, after a book called The Peasants. And originally this was published in Łódź, the city that this movie is all about. Tells the story of three friends who are ruthless young industrialists. There's a Pole, German, and a Jew. And the themes are around the labor exploitation during the late 19th century industrialization. So he kind of discusses the themes of environmental degradation and urbanization. And I believe we are going to touch on some other themes as well. The book has been translated into English in 1927. Unfortunately, this podcast, at least from my part, was unable to get hands on to this book, but Magda is here to save us once again. At least you have read it, but it's like 25 years ago, if I get it correct.
Yes, but yesterday, yes, because it's one of these classic which you read and watch before you even realize it, because it's still on the TV, like Ziemia, obiecana as a movie. I like reading, so I've read all the classics quite early. So I needed to refresh it yesterday. Both movie and both. I watched the movie once again, but it's the movie you can watch over and over. Which one of my friends who comes from Łódź actually does all the time. So I have it refreshed, and I hope I will remember it well, all the details.
Henrik, I think it's a moment to already raise the hat for our guest Magda, who has been working with such a speed and joined this podcast with a very short notice.
Most definitely. I mean, not only is Magda the most familiar with the work, with the film, and also the only one who has read the book, but also on top of that, behind the scenes, Magda came to our aid in a very short notice here to save our backs and to actually make sure that we do have a guest for this episode.
Yeah.
No worries. Thank you for the invitation.
We are very pleased to have you back.
Thank you. Me too.
Magda, have you by any chance seen also the very early film adaptation? Because there's Ziemia, obiecana, The Promised Land from 1927 as well.
Yes, I know, but I haven't seen it. But actually, it's very interesting information, and I will definitely watch it after.
I would have tried to watch it, but at least I was having trouble finding it, but maybe you have your sources.
Hope so.
There is also an adaptation for TV, like a TV serial from 1978, so anyone interested can look it up. Okay, let's talk some little more lightweight topics. For example, Industrial Revolution. Henrik, can I throw this ball to you at this point?
No, you can't.
Anyway, Industrial Revolution, we can thank Industrial Revolution for the film itself for existing, or the existence of this forlorn podcast. But yeah, it's an event that started in Europe and the US with force. It happened somewhere between 1760 to sometime between 1820 to 1840. The historians are not exactly decided on this, but somewhere around there, let's say. And of course, it developed the trade and the rise of the business, and leading causes for unprecedented population growth and the material wealth, and having more stuff than having actually so much stuff that we have to store it. The United Kingdom was the main responsible party for the development of the industrial methods. And in some instances, the worker output was increased 500 times. We can also thank coal, unfortunately, for the Industrial Revolution. Coal, it was causing environmental damage, well, of course, also risks for the inhabitants of such industrial cities, and it's kind of hard to think about it, but actually in the 1800s there were concerns for environmental degradation during this time as well, and taking over a lot of land to put these factories into function. Anything to add to these thoughts about this very simple subject?
I also found that some people mentioned in the book and in the movie are based on real people who were running factories in Łódź. They were very rich, and they, for example, possessed one of the very first steam engine machines in Poland.
Okay.
Yes, and what is really interesting about Łódź is that Łódź itself is actually, as an industrial city, as a big city, is actually a child of Industrial Revolution. Before, it was a very small village or very small town belonging to the 19th century. It was a part of Congress Poland, but then it was incorporated into Russian Empire after this November uprising. Some of this Russian Empire even thought about making a city a village again, because it was a village when it was the city, and then it was so small that they decided to make it a village again. So I think Polish government of Congress Poland decided to make it industrial. They relocate textile industry. So some people started to move there from Wielkopolska, Greater Poland, or Silesia, or even Czech, or Brandenburgia, I don't know the English name. So they started to move there people which were experts in textile. They started to develop the city. So unlike, for example, Krakow and Warsaw, which have really rich history as a big cities and centers of cultural and industrial life as well, before the Industrial Revolution, Łódź is definitely a child of Industrial Revolution.
Yeah, okay. And nowadays it is the third biggest city in Poland. Exactly. So it has about 700,000 people, and suffered quite a lot economically after the world wars, but has recently kind of risen up once again.
I hope so, that it will last. Yes, not that much after the Second World War as after 89, when Łódź started to be not taken good care about. I don't know what are exact reasons actually, but it was an example of the very unpleasant city, let's say. But now it's getting revitalized, and I hope it will last, and Łódź is getting more and more beautiful.
Many of our listeners probably want to know where roughly Łódź is. So Łódź it's roughly 120 kilometers southwest of Warsaw, so very close. You can get there in a few hours by a bus.
Some people go to work, like they live in Łódź, but they, for example, go to work to Warsaw by train, which is faster.
Yes, and Łódź actually is a Polish word for boat.
Exactly.
Do you know the background of the boat? Why is it a boat?
It's not confirmed where it comes from. Probably not from the boat itself, because it had no rivers which might be used to where boats might be placed. So probably not from the boat, really. But there are some different theories about coming from the name of the person or something like that.
And the brick-built factories, the buildings themselves are still, at least partly, are standing in Łódź. I guess they are used for a little bit different purposes nowadays. Or do you know if there's something going on in these buildings? Some of them are museums, yeah?
Some of them, they are museums. For sure, Pałac Poznańskiego, Poznański Palace, which was this very rich building where Miller was living, is now a museum.
Okay.
Yes, but about this industrial industrial buildings. Sometimes they became, for example, loft apartments. They were revitalized for different purposes. This Poznański factory, which was used in the movie, is now a multifunctional shopping and entertainment center called Manufaktura.
Oh yeah. That is definitely there, and
Yes.
it's also known internationally for its national film school.
Yes. Where, for example, Roman Polanski was studying.
Yeah, and Andrzej Wajda himself.
Yes, exactly.
And many famous actors and actresses, and there is still the notion that we could make that after these world wars the business of the Lochermensch was greatly diminished. Their status and their time was over at that point, and
I can see that you made really good research on it.
also, before we dive in, it would be good to talk about the Lochermensch or Wuchermensch, however you want to pronounce this. So these were a group of elite people inside Łódź that were responsible for this industrial revolution. And many of the workers in Łódź in the 19th century were people that were coming from different countries. It wasn't really considered in many ways like properly a Polish city or town because there were so many foreigners. And like we see in this film, we have German. I believe very much that this film is also kind of making the point that, you know, these outsiders are not very much wanted in Łódź. Or you could have a different reading. I don't know what you felt, but it felt like a very patriotic take sometimes.
Kind of, but I think that Łódź was created by people from these four cultures that you mentioned: Russians, Jews, German, and Polish people. So they needed to kind of work to live next to each other and work with each other.
Yeah, the Wuchermensch, Lochermensch, they have been seen sometimes as very, very ruthless people who don't care about humanity.
Yes, it's probably not that much about culture, patriotism, and so on. It's mostly about money and how ruthless they can be in search of money and good business and how bad it makes them.
Yeah, there have been arguments for and against this group called the Lochermensch. Do you have like an idea how people consider this Lochermensch legacy nowadays? What are people's feelings?
It depends whom you ask to.
Yeah.
It was shown in the movie. Of course, it was made in this communist time in Poland in 1974. So it was mostly against capitalists and noblemen who wanted to earn money exploiting poorer people, which is shown very clearly in the movie, and it's even stronger than in the book, but the book has it as well. But now in Poland we had this time of really wild capitalism with saying that if you don't have money, it's only your fault. So there are still some people who, after 89, we had this very wild kind of capitalism. And there's still something around in the air about it.
Okay.
So solidarity is often just a word. Probably there are many people who say that these people, for example, made Łódź flourish, or they developed the country and its business, which is of course to some extent apparently true, but of course they also exploited people. And for example, there were no any insurances, so they had to pay if the machine got broken because of their accident. If they had an accident, and for example they were injured, they needed to pay for the machine not working and for the losses of the owner of the factory.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yes.
Somehow, Łódź has also kept its international makeup. So I know that there are still like Chinese people working, for example, some Asian people. There are some people from Middle East. Interesting how that has been like that. and has, updated itself. I'm sure that there were no Chinese people too much in the 1800s, but who knows.
I think so, yes, not too much.
Henrik, Magda, would it be scene by scene?
Mm-hmm.
Unless you still want to go on a tantrum about the currency exchange in Poland.
I have a tantrum about exchange.
Well, you did have one about the whole industrial revolution, so I was just waiting for you to shift gears and jumping the next kind of a larger-than-life topic. Well, I'm fairly certain that both the form of currency used in Poland has changed at some point, and also exchanging currency and exchanging goods and services is something that is very prominently actually upheld and used in industrial countries and capitalism altogether.
Mm-hmm.
No argument there.
Of course, we need to remember that Poland was under Russian Empire at the time, this part of Poland. So we had rubles there. So this money they are talking about are not zlotys, which we are using right now.
Yeah, but zloty was like the Polish currency, but then it was taken out and replaced by the ruble, and then once again replaced by zloty.
Exactly.
All right, so this film, there is apparently a director's cut of this film, which is 179 minutes. Okay, Magda, do you actually know if there is a difference, or if there are two versions, in fact?
There were some versions, and as far as I know, the director's cut, this erotic scene between Lucy Zuckerman and between Karol Borowiecki in this carriage is shorter in the director's cut, as far as I know.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah, definitely there are some, I know, for its time, quite graphic moments.
So I think I watched this shorter version yesterday. Yes.
Okay. Title sequence, that's what we start with, and we're depicting a very happy, uplifting mood. The friends are singing on the bikes and going to the father of Karol. There's actually two pieces of music, as far as I have noticed in this film. There is the title theme, and then there is the horror theme. Like every time when something bad is about to happen, we know.
Yeah, I've recalled this Anna's theme, or Kurów theme, which is delicate, very kind of romantic, very referring to countryside.
Kurów is some small village, right?
Kurów is a small village where Anka, which is Karol Borowiecki, lives. And when Karol Borowiecki visits her with his friends, it's just beautiful countryside with dogs and garden and forest. And there's this music, which is very much calming and relaxing.
When it comes to the cast of characters, there is indeed Karol Borowiecki, which is the kind of charming, good-looking guy who gets all the ladies, and the Polish guy of the film. Then we have Moritz Welt, the Jew, and then we have Max Baum, dark-haired individual from Germany. Andrzej Seweryn, who is playing Max, he was born in Germany. I was wondering why he has his German voice parts dubbed while he was, I guess, talking in Polish originally. Maybe he never had time to learn German might be the reason. Anyway, best known internationally from Schindler's List from 1993, possibly one of the most depressing films ever made. Then there is a film called Ostatnia Rodzina, The Last Family from 2016. There's a very unusual life of the artistic family of a certain painter, Zdzisław Beksinski. When it comes to the other actors, maybe Henrik knows more.
Not that much, actually. Once again, Polish films altogether kind of being the dark spot in my film knowledge. Unfortunately, from the main cast and crew, more well-known films from the rest of the cast. Daniel Olbrychski. Yeah, precisely that guy. For Western audiences, those more familiar with American films, since you started off with Schindler's List, I guessed from him being the main bad guy in the 2010 Jason Bourne knockoff copycat film Salt.
Yeah, he was playing Orlov.
Yeah, the Angelina Jolie.
And Liev Schreiber.
Yeah, spy action film which was supposed to start the franchise and fucking nothing happened. Yeah, and the actor playing Morris, whose name I won't even try to pronounce here. Take it away, Karri.
Okay, I will give you a helping hand here. Wojciech Pszoniak.
Yeah, precisely that guy. I guess would be. I don't know how many have seen this, but there is the old 83 French film Danton where he plays Robespierre.
Danton?
Yeah.
Yeah, Danton, the other Andrzej Wajda masterpiece, where Pszoniak was.
Wajda himself, I guess from his filmography, the best known film for Finns and for global audiences would be Ashes and Diamonds. And maybe Katin. Yeah. I don't know how familiar release Katin got when it came out, but Ashes and Diamonds often is remarked as the Andrzej Wajda film.
Okay, good to know that, because I'm not really aware of how many Andrzej Wajda's films are well known abroad.
If it comes to Polish cinema in general, then probably you would, as a Finn or as an international listener, you would know also Roman Polanski's Knife in the Water.
Nóż w wodzie.
Nóż w wodzie.
Yeah. Wojciech Pszoniak is also playing now in French theaters. He's very renowned Polish actor. All of them are actually cast of Ziemia obiecana. This Promised Land is full of great Polish actors and actresses, like Lucy Zukerowa, which is Kalina Jędrusik, like Bożena Dykiel, who is playing Mada Millerowa, Jerzy Zelnik, Piotr Franczewski, many other names as well. And Wojciech Pszoniak was not meant to play Moritz. He was to play Cuker, Lucy's husband.
Oh.
So yes, but he told Andrzej Wajda that they would need to add some more scenes because he's just such a beautiful boy. And it's not really probable that Lucy would look for some other affairs with other people. So he left to visit Uzbekistan. And when he was back, Andrzej Wajda told him that he's gonna to play Moritz. And Jerzy Zelnik, who was going to play Moritz, became Horst.
All right.
So, and also about Andrzej Seweryn, he is well known from playing for French Comédie Française. So he is playing in French for a very renowned French theater institution. He's also very renowned and very famous Polish actor.
All right. Wow, we have a lot of knowledge here tonight.
Yeah, that's why we have. This is the reason why we have guests here, up here.
Actually, Ziemia obiecana is getting this title of the best Polish movie all the time in different competitions, or it's the second or the third. So it's always somewhere at the top. And actually, I think it's a really good movie as well, among all Polish movies, which I've seen a lot.
Promised Land, which indeed refers to Łódź. I don't know if it was widely called as kind of a promised land.
I suppose so. I found this information in one place, but it was also called let's say in the newspapers. It was called Ziemia obiecana at this time.
All right, let's go to the yard. The yard where Karol's, they're engaged at this point.
Yes, they are engaged. Yes.
Yeah, Anka appears. And the beautiful title music hits in. More titles are coming with Karol and Anka on horseback. Very romantic. We have a lot of wide shots here. We have camera circles around the characters. Simply shot, saving a lot of time. You take one wide shot, one main wide shot, and then you add in between some close-ups and voila. Super happy mood here. Then we have the main character introduction, and they utter the line that is repeated throughout this film. I have nothing, you have nothing, he has nothing. Then together we have just enough to found a big factory at this point.
It's a very well-known quotation in Poland. Taken from this movie. It was even used by the left side politician after they got some seats in Polish parliament in the recent parliament elections.
And then everybody stopped using it. Yeah, but that's great.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this is interesting, like, because everybody had to work together. There were Catholics, Protestants,
Mm-hmm.
Jews, Orthodoxes, and Baptists. Everybody worked side by side because they had to. They were forced to tolerate each other, as discussed.
Mm-hmm.
And we
Yes.
have a party over dinner. Like the priest here says that he will come bless the factory once completed and marry Karol and Anka. And he does the first one, but there's no time for the second one. There's already this conflict with Karol and his father. Like he thinks that his father is some mummified Polish nobility. Then again, Karol is like a weakly person throughout the film. I feel like he's talking in some way about the women of this film, and on the other hand, while he's having these affairs behind the scenes.
He plays with 3 women, and actually from the book we can find out that he had much more lovers. So he thinks he would marry Anka, but he's also probably don't closes his door in terms of some other relationships if they might be beneficial for him.
What it looks like to me is that, he has 3 women throughout the film. The last one, at least to me, came as a kind of a surprise because I don't think it was built up too much before the end. You know, the relationship to Mada. And
Yes.
It does get mentioned in the film, and it gets laid down.
okay.
There are some pieces of information on it, I suppose, in the dialogues, but also it is shown in the theater when she's shown in this caricatural way. I must say that that there's a difference in comparison to the book, because the book showed Mada as much more subtle, not stupid, and much more nuanced. Like the movie needed to make some things a bit flat, I suppose, because there are some more sophisticated, deeper descriptions of people's feeling. There are some characters who were totally not mentioned in the movie. Some threads were solved in a different way. For example, Travnicki, this nobleman which commits suicide in the carriage, is nothing like that in the book. He's actually, after a few years after the book, it is told that he's quite successful, but still honest, and he tries to be honest and a good man. And also these characters, some more things are told about their feelings. They are not that one side, let's say. Because this Mada is also in the book, she's a young, nice-looking woman who is probably just shy. But when Karol starts talking to her, she starts to show her in the common sense, and she starts showing that she's not that stupid.
Yeah, in the film, Mada serves kind of a tool to make a more sinister point about the character of Karol, and because of that, Mada kind of can't be that strong of a character in the film itself,
Yes.
because it would water down that point that gets played off in the last seconds of the film.
It's emphasizing the fact that this guy is, at least in my books, out for only his self-interest via these ladies, because he's able to get insider information via one lady. He's able to, satisfy himself sexually, and he's able to, get money from these ladies. I think he's only looking after his own financial interests.
I think so. Yes, but also this it's showing these ladies in such a contrasted way is also I think it goes well with them in the movie, because it also allows Wajda to show this grotesque character of some relations of Łódź itself, and also through female characters it's done.
Yeah, good point. Max is inside with Anka. There's this horror music beginning to play again. Then there is a scene of a man inside a house who sings some kind of a prayer. It's actually Buchholz, one of the presidents of these companies in Łódź. Intercut with factories spewing coal clouds. And when it comes to clouds, this film is extremely cloudy. There's always something like steam coming from somewhere, or the coal coming through the windows, or the morning sun kind of making this haze. There's always this haze around outside. I believe this film is very, very much, well, clearly filmed in Łódź. I don't know if anywhere else, but definitely Łódź.
Apparently, it's mostly filmed in Łódź. Some parts, but very small ones were filmed in Bielsko-Biała, Wrocław, Skierniewice, which are not very far away from Łódź, I mean Skierniewice.
Okay.
Actually, as I've heard, people from abroad thought that it was made, like the scene was made by Polish scenographers and so on. But it's not true, actually. They were using real locations, not in all cases. But for example, they created some connections of streets which do not exist in real life. But overall, they were using real locations, Łódź locations, and I think also this city is a great hero of the movie itself.
Okay. There's Pan Wilczek, who is paying, I believe, the salaries of one of these companies, but doesn't want to give any money for the poor lady. She would need her salary now, or something with a pledge, because Pan Wilczek doesn't accept anything else than something with a pledge, then gets a very small amount of money. So yeah, everybody who is in lead positions in this film is basically, I don't know, an asshole. So that it's hammering this point very strongly, that the Lodgermensch and any of their associates are not good people.
I don't know about that, because there is still a certain divide between the different factory owners. And even how the kind of a nationality of the old guard of the factory owners is played out. Like you have your Polish family, the Polish factory owners. These are the parents of, for example, Karol, who are very much traditionalists. You have the Jewish community and the factory owners from there, who on the other side are I would say they are the most warmest, the most singing faction in the film, but they are also the ones who constantly make constant mentions of money. And basically everything they say always revolves around money and currency. And then there is the German family, which is shown visually in the most coldest tone. Large, dark, barren rooms, but they also are the ones who makes most mentionings about being honest and being fair and not kind of getting too tied up with capitalism and this means to an end way of life, which is kind of the driving conflict between Max and his father.
Yeah, I was just referring to the trio of the film, where I feel that while there is less ruthlessness in Max and Moritz in the beginning of the film, by the end of the film, especially Moritz has become pretty much as ruthless as Karol.
Moritz, most definitely, yeah. And I would say that kind of the road to ruthlessness with the characters goes that Moritz is the one who becomes the most shady, the quickest. Karol, even though being quite the asshole, still tries to somehow justify his actions and still tries to have these limits. Like, I'm not willing to cross this line. I'm not willing to do that act. And he tries to have this juggling act between doing what is right and at the same time being extremely goal-driven entrepreneur. And Max, on the other hand, I would say that he is from the trio, he is the one who best manages to keep his humanity. Like, Max doesn't really abuse the system that harshly, except in the very last shot of the film, when he joins the last decision making that the trio does.
All in all, I see it as a ruthless, intensifying kind of a film, without much of a beginning, middle, and an end, in a sense. There is the factory burning, but otherwise it's very documentary-esque. We follow these people, and anything that changes clearly here is, I would say, the development of the characters for the worse.
I would say there are kind of two dimensions of the typical 3-act structure. If you want to go look for them, the first one is the financial, the material 3-act structure, which is them wanting to build the factory, them having the factory, losing the factory. Or if you want to see it kind of a larger 3-act, then there is the building, losing, and rebuilding of the factory. And then there is also the 3-act structure of them, kind of the downward slope that their morality and the values they uphold take.
Very good. Well, throughout the film there are factories burning. Either somebody is evidently somebody is protesting really hard against the Industrial Revolution and trying to burn down these factories. First victim is the Goldberg's factory, which is burning.
And usually whenever a factory burns within the film, the notion given is that someone has burned his own factory in order to pull off an insurance scam. The film does confirm in the end, in the last third, that that's not necessarily the case every single time, as it turns out with the factory of the main trio. But yeah, the factory burnings that happened all over Łódź, apparently, or everybody is giving the notion that they are insurance scams that the now bankrupt factory owners themselves are pulling off. And that kind of ties down into what I would see as one of the main topics of the film, which is capitalism, and depicting capitalism as a form of kind of a group hysteria and a way to achieve a status symbol. Like, the capitalists in the film are not necessarily capitalist because they really have hammered down this great idea for business, because they somehow have tagged on into this undefiable quote-unquote entrepreneurial spirit. But they are capitalist because they want to be capitalist, because it's a status symbol in the society to be a capitalist, to own a factory. Where I got this reading was from the fact that, like you mentioned, at this point, or in the very early on in the film, everybody is already burning their factories. So, on that regard, the capitalist system in Łódź is already kind of seen collapsing and not being as strong as everybody would want to see it to be. There's the factory burnings, there are the suicides to avoid bankruptcy. And yet, at the same time, with your common sense, that you would make the case that in that economical situation, the worst possible idea you would have would be starting a factory of your own. Like, the economical structure obviously is not supporting yet one more factory. And yet that still is what the trio is striving at.
It's not very, one thing you want people to do, because there are also some victims, and they deceive the state or the insurance companies. But in many cases, these are not even burns to avoid bankruptcy. They want to bankrupt, really.
Who wants to work? Me. Everyone is excited to work in this scene where we also have a poor woman. Her husband's head has been chopped off in the factory, and actually one of the workers of the factory advises her to sue the company. Has lived in Łódź something like 2 years and is cursing Łódź a lot. And we will see that this Mr. Horn will have a little bit of a beef with the HQ of the company, with their views that she shouldn't go to court in any way and should be just hush-hushed with money.
Without that much money, of course, because they would probably have paid her more if she sued them.
Exactly, and so Mr. Horn now tells to his superior, he's talking to Borawiecki. A woman was there, and he told the woman to seek a lawyer and that she should sue the factory, and says this line, Nie jestem maszyną, jestem człowiekiem. I am not a machine, I am a person. Sounds like something that could be kind of iconic as well.
Exactly. And what Karol Borowiecki answers him is also interesting. He says that the factory doesn't care of his human instincts and his human compassion, let's say. As long as he works in a factory, he actually needs to be a machine and he's paid for the work for the factory. And it's also visible in the book when Buchholz thinks of Karol Borowiecki as his best machine. So it's also well noted by Andrzej Wajda and well extracted how capitalism treats people as machines. This aspect gets even more important and current now when we probably stand at the very threshold of robots working commonly instead of people. So maybe it's for the future. Maybe it's not, but there's this threat and people are afraid of it. And I think this scene and this aspect of the book and of the film also seen in a scene when this very thin and very old worker comes to Karol Borowiecki and asks about new machines which are going to be installed. And after that, people probably would get fired, some people. So it gets even more modern, up to date.
Yeah, gonna be interesting. We're kind of on the verge of the next stage of the next industrial revolution with the takeover of the machines, and it's a big subject to discuss, but on the overall it's exciting to see where this is going, because we're all the time since the beginning of time basically we are doing more stuff with less resources. This that is sometimes called ephemeralization, so doing more with less, and interesting to see how far you can push this one as we go forwards. And we have to always, make it faster and faster because of the loss of the economies.
Exactly. So pretty up-to-date movie now.
Yeah.
As it appears, even if it's 45 years old.
It looks like Moritz has some guy working under him who is supposed to read all the day's news from the dailies and then report back to him. There's a lot
I
of
think
this.
also just hear news from people blabbering or saying something, this mouth-to-mouth information which is not official. Probably he's also gathering that for him.
Street talk.
Mm-hmm.
Max now watches the factory pipes. Max's father wastes time by not updating to the latest machinery. And he's afraid that his father will destroy them because he's not up for updating his systems. And indeed, it's going to be his downfall. And this is a kind of a cinematic moment, father looking out of the window and all that, looks good. And the guy loses his arm now at the factory where Borowiecki is working. Karol Borowiecki, and this is where we are exposing more of the ruthlessness. It's just somebody has gotten his hand cut off and the guy is completely out and probably dead. Karol says, back to the machines. So much cloth wasted.
Yes, and all other people, workers, are just standing, saying nothing, and they need to get back to work.
They must be very afraid of doing anything.
Yes. They need to work, so they cannot say no.
And co-worker Travinsky is asking for a loan. Travinsky has 15,000 rubles to pay.
He has his own factory.
Oh, yes. Okay, yeah. And he doesn't want to talk to Buchholz, the big guy of the company, because that would be below his noble madness. Yeah.
But it's his point of view, right? That he doesn't want to go to people whom he does not respect.
It's unlike the trio here. Travinsky is not willing to go the extra mile and suck his pride.
Exactly. And do everything for money, yes. Yeah. It's not like that.
So now Kalman is burning financially, Grossman, everyone burning, Fellows, Fishpin. I don't know if these are more important characters in the book, but there's so many names mentioned throughout the film. Sometimes it's hard to keep track.
Yes, because the book is a kind of, we call it in Polish panorama, to show the whole society from the very top to the very bottom. And also different people express different opinions. They have this monologues to express different points of view. So that's how it was done in novels there. I think Wajda tried to some extent, as much as it was possible, to reflect it in the movie, to show the whole Łódź and different approaches, different people, as we already said, different cultures. So you probably refer to this scene when this old man talks about Łódź itself, right? About how it develops.
There is this older guy who is talking to Stravinsky and saying what would be the ideal version of Łódź, basically.
Yes, exactly. It's one of these examples.
Yeah, indeed. He seems to be very excited, but it seems like a kind of like a camouflage that let's keep up this act, and Stravinsky is not listening and shoots himself into the head.
Yeah. So if we just get back to this Hermann Buchholz, his prototype, let's say, was Karol Scheibler, who, for example, foresaw cotton crisis caused by American Civil War. So he bought it cheaper and he really earned a lot of it. And it's also somehow reflected, also the reflection of real conditions which were present in Łódź and in what these Łódź factory owners worked in.
As Henrik can probably guess, I was looking for the historical exchange rates of rubles and zlotys, but unfortunately I couldn't find anything.
I couldn't find it as well.
Here is one of the moments where Moritz is not being the nicest employee or a human being. Kessler is the boss of Moritz, is looking for some kind of a sex slave or a wife, He doesn't trust Poles. He has set his eye on Zoska, and the brother of hers, Adam, goes to inform his father that Zoska got in trouble with Kessler, and now the father says that he himself will deal with Kessler regarding this issue. Later on, sends a letter to him, and they have a little bit of a battle.
Yes, but it's later on, and now I think what's important here is to emphasize that Kessler was just going through the factory and picking the girls he liked to sexually assault them, or to make them his lovers and then abandon and then take another ones, female workers in his factory.
In her situation, it's either have some sexy time with Kessler or spend the rest of her life in the factory doing the same thing. Magda, do you know if these palace shots in the several palaces of these presidents, do you think these were also shot in Łódź, or?
All of these palace were the most famous palace shots were made in Palace of Izrael Poznański. So it's the place that was built by another famous Łódź capitalists. For shorter, it's called Pałac Poznańskiego. It's in Łódź, yes, Pałac Poznańskiego. Now it's a museum of the city.
Oh, definitely have to visit next time.
Yes.
Yeah, because now we're getting one of these palace scenes. Mongrel is the servant of Buchholz, and they are going through hate mail and laughing at those.
This episode between Karol and Buchholz with these letters was made in current musical academy. And yes, this fireplace still exists, but then there was a clock on it, and now it's just like something else. It's the Palace of Karol Poznański, so not Izrael Poznański, but Karol Poznański.
Okay, good. We have a scene where the peasants come to meet Karol because they need some work. They are coming from Kurów. Mr. and Mrs. Soha, they are requesting for work.
Yes.
And some, quote, bitch has torched their home. So that is kind of the issue. They are being very dramatic. Well, I guess in that situation, anybody would be screaming their head off like, Jesus, please help us already in this situation. And 25,000 has been arranged to Borowiecki from Lutze.
Well, let's say we may stick to English pronunciation or...
Yeah, like, geez, everybody is indeed torching each other's houses and buildings. Like, I guess, thank goodness for the Industrial Revolution, so we got a little bit more robust buildings. But so, we get to rich people's party time. So, time to start dancing. Karol is being offered work 14,000 rubles to work with another guy, but he turns down the offer, but says he's very kind and says that if he decides to join later on, he will still get 8,000 rubles for his services. This is very nice, but there are also some offers that are being made to, for example, Moritz, and he keeps turning down each and all of them. Seems that there's a big grudge that everybody has towards the Polish person inside Łódź, and this is where I felt that they want to get rid of him because he's Polish, and Łódź is still kind of I guess a very German city, you could say.
Well, German Jewish, and it is said that he might be dangerous because he's Polish.
Right.
And but even better to stick to German people than to Polish people.
We get to theater, and Karol is being asked how many millions, as in money, are in the theater, and he says maybe 200.
Yeah, one of them says that, I think Moritz says that it smells millions. Karol Borowiecki answers.
It's rather of onion and garlic. And
Yeah, what they are.
why they are especially doing this? Are they doing this to find more victims, to get some insider scoops from these ladies that are wearing the most expensive stuff? You could go with that. Definitely they are not there for the theater, they are there to gather information.
Actually, it's mostly it's also a charity show, so it's not very professional. It's good to be present on such occasions as well, and also they can talk to some to some people. They can observe people, for example, rich factory owners which are there.
You know, I'm very delighted with this one guy who is having all the fun. I paid so I can have my fun.
Yes, it's Müller. He's not very sophisticated, but he knows what he likes and he knows what he pays for. It's all about money and nothing else.
Yeah, very much. And then we are referring to Madame Müller, which is, I believe, the daughter of this Mr. Müller.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Mada Müller is a daughter of Mr. Müller. She's quite young, pretty dumb, and irritating young lady in the movie.
Very.
Yes. But Karol Borowiecki tries to entertain her, tries to be nice to her, kind. Let's say he uses his charm to keep some doors open.
He doesn't use so much of that said charm when he's talking with the trio and says that he is like a pink-plucked goose. But nevertheless, at the end of the film,
Yes.
we find out that he is actually romantically involved with the lady.
I don't know about romantically.
Oh, okay, let's say financially. Yeah.
Yes, and I think we can tell that now, but eventually they get married, like Mada and Karol Borowiecki. Even though he doesn't like her, he doesn't respect her. Also, this scene in the theater, this set in the theater, is really nice in terms of showing this grotesque character of the whole Łódź, because they are all laughing in a very spooky way. They kind of a bit scary. It's emphasized, it's very expressive, it's not very pleasant to see it. The singers performing on the stage are rather comic figures, caricatures maybe, and it's rather grotesque than subtle.
When it comes to caricature, there's a lot of caricature type. Theater-influenced acting, maybe the old style of acting in Poland and, well, every corner of the world. It's very theatrical and sometimes kind of did get on my nerves.
Yes, sometimes it's too much. Exactly, I agree.
Yeah, all right. And then there is something that has happened. There's some cotton problems. And Albasov in Odessa is bankrupt and some other person as well. Somebody has shot himself in the theater corridors. Could it be said or argued that one of the Lodgermensch was killed on the corridors? Well, Karol is probably thinking that he's gonna be the next if this was a Lodgermensch killed in the corridors.
Maybe
I took it that was just a suicide, once again.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Karol kind of seduces you could say kind of the concubine of the film, which she will not get to be, but she delivers the message, which just pops out of nowhere in between them in the carriage somehow.
even in the middle of the erotic interaction, there's money again. all the time money with no like break.
Yeah, and somehow these ladies, they are so into the high life, being with these men, that I guess they are kind of, in a sense, blinded, that they don't care, that these men really don't care about these women, and at least cuddle, and is just making them as his tools. And so gets the message that the custom duty of American cotton will be increased to 25 kopecks, and it's going to be happening in 2 weeks, and announced in 1 week. And now he has the upper hand, Cuddle has the upper hand, so yeah, well, he's buying a tons of cotton at this moment.
Just to use this still smaller prices.
Yeah.
And of course he tells his news only to his friends Moritz and Max.
Yeah, and then we have everybody drunk at the house. There's a lot of this high life depicted in this film, like this leisure life surrounding these rich people that nobody likes. And the drunken adventures continue in the carriage, and Moritz, the character, is not too much into this stuff and instead slaps the prostitute. Leaves the scene, is drunk as can be, but then just pukes it all out, and he's perfectly fine. And gets the news that Carol has just received about the cotton.
Yeah, he mysteriously sobers up immediately after money is mentioned.
Yeah, he just climbs on this one cage. Okay, Max is having sexy time though, and Moritz is jumping around naked. Looks like they're taking turns.
Yeah, I really loved this small scene when Moritz is trying to get out of his room completely naked, but he notices Carol, who's leaving the Max's room, and he's apparently pissed off. So Moritz is just looking at Carol, and he just closes the door again. It's just a small, like, funny.
And then they make some agreements on paper, which is always kind of a good thing to do. The insurance would be even better, but they put in writing that Moritz will be doing this and that, buying and sending by express delivery. It could be something else. And then only now we get to the continuation to the whole Zoska case, where she comes home to tell about the whole Kessler case, because everybody knows it already anyway, and admits the sexy moments with Kessler, or at least that she went to the office of Kessler and can't be anything else than something sexual involved in this moment, and denounces her daughter. Heavy stuff. The foreman said to her that if she wouldn't be coming, then throw her out of the factory.
Rejected by her mother, and she says that she doesn't want to spend her whole life in the factory, and that Kessler tells he loves her and that he's gonna to marry her, which is of course bullshit.
Adam visits his father at the factory's spinning mill where he works and asks if Soha is back. Actually, I don't know who is Soha in this film.
It's his daughter. Zocha is just a way to call Zofia. Zofia, Zocha, Zośka. Lots of ways of saying this.
Yeah, of course. And the mother has thrown out Zośka, as we find out. And Kessler visits the Malinovsky father. They fall into the mill. Body parts are sprayed around. Kind of the most grotesque scene, perhaps, of the film. Yes. Getting kind of horror-esque. And kind of humorous as well.
Yes, it seems very artificial, right? All this human body remains, which...
I'm not sure what the last part was supposed to be. Was it like really a head or like a boot?
I think it was.
Yeah, I think it was supposed to be a head. Like a paper mache head that just gets thrown on the floor.
Imagine the filmmakers somewhere under the floor just prepared to throw these human body parts on the upper floor or something. You know, filmmaking is so much fun, Henrik. We have to make the film fast.
Probably it would be made more realistic now, but to some point it's even like, moving. It's not that perfect in every inch of the tape. So I even appreciate this.
I'm willing to look past these funny body parts because there's a scene that happens there that the parts just starting to appear suddenly in a kind of a serious film so far. It was such of a mood switch for me that I laughed.
Yes, exactly. But what did we say? What happened there? That they had the fight?
Right, the fight about the daughter, and of course the father didn't approve what the Kessler, the president, was doing, and it was time for battle.
And they landed in this. It was actually a steam engine machine, and I think it was some actual machine, which were something somewhere in the factory also. So it's also nice thing to know that they didn't build it up for the needs of the movie, but they just found it somewhere in Łódź.
Oh, nice. Something still left from those days. Yeah, all these scenes in Łódź are represented in a kind of a pretty ruthless light. Everybody is after the bottom line, and so is also the lighting of the film is kind of dark and fuzzy. And
I can't recall any or not many people of like middle class or very poor people or very rich people.
Yeah. Moritz now hands some money for his buddy Borowiecki. Also, Max is kind of ignoring his pride as well because he's putting his wedding ring into the ring so they can buy the factory.
Because they are building a factory. They are
building a factory, yeah.
They are not buying an existing one, but they want to build their own factory.
One thing that I paid attention to is that in many parts of the film we noticed that, suddenly Moritz needs some more money, some more loans from somewhere, and then suddenly Borowiecki is getting money like what seems to be like randomly just getting money from the ladies out of nowhere. It seems that there's always some need for money, and then they're really, really, really happy about it. And after that, we see that, they're again receiving money or they need some more money. So we never kind of know when they are having enough money. Then that at just one point they just start building the factory, and then we know.
Yes. Yeah, but they have this. They need this money, but they have this. They found this occasion of cotton, which they found necessary to buy before the tariffs goes up. And they of course needed money for the factory, but they also have some connections in this Łódź.
But here we get to my probably favorite scene where Horn loses his temper once and for all. Like like a good scene for, I guess, as a Polish national feeling. The President Buchholz has now decided to pay 200 rubles for the woman who was asked to go to the court about the situation that her husband is dead, died in the factory before. But Mr. Horn wants to challenge Buchholz's stance and authority. There's a great quote, which we can get to in the favorite quote part, but basically says that I'm not interested if you're patient or not, and storms off this building, where Buchholz's assistant August also gets beaten for not throwing Horn out in the first place when first called.
Horn is played by Piotr Franceski, which is also a very renowned Polish actor. I could see in his behavior when he loses his temper and he stands against his boss, and finally he tells him that he's fed up with his lack of patience and with his orders and with everything, with this boss himself. He's acting very naturally, so he repeats what he have told a few times. He looks really angry and like out of the tracks, let's say. So I think it's a really good piece of acting as well.
Definitely. There is a follow-up where I believe the Buchholz's temper and blood pressure is still running so high that he actually now dies inside the factory itself.
Yeah, because it's just after this scene with Horn when Buchholz, this factory owner, dies in the factory, but no one really cares about him, right? No one like this young girl who's working around, and she's just so afraid of doing anything about him that she just stepped out. She's just going somewhere else and not doing anything about him. And this is, to some point, I think it's the result of their previous actions with people who got hurt in the machines, around the machines, who lost their hands or died in it. So he just got what he gave, eventually.
And we see the Sohas, that were the peasants that were addressing Karol earlier. They are now working for Karol. and the trio is talking about the business a little bit, or was it just Moritz and Karol? Anyway, Karol is waking up in his room. Again, this like morning haze is coming through the windows. We get to a moment where Mr. Kaczmarek is what looks like an uninvited guest in Kurów, where Karol and the bunch are now. And Mr. Kaczmarek is talking very loudly about the German pigs. When you do business or just chat, black coffee is the best. True or false, Magda Henrik? I prefer my lattes.
Lattes were way too kind of a watery and way too soft.
Has to be.
No, most definitely doesn't need to be.
My son's getting married. It's not him. He's no good at business. I have no use for him in Łódź. I will buy him a manor. He may become a squire. I don't know why Mr. Kaczmarek is talking about this stuff. Because at this moment, Karol looks very insulted, even though Mr. Kaczmarek is not the father of Karol. Yes?
I can't recall. Maybe it's again this scene which weren't present and in the shorter version which I watched yesterday.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people around the table. There is Anka, Karol, was it Moritz? And then this Kaczmarek is saying how bad his son is and that he's basically useless.
Yeah, maybe I just took it as a babbling.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of babbling actually in this film. There's a lot of dialogue that doesn't mean anything at the end of the day. So in that sense, I get this very documentary film feeling.
Yes, it may just show the environment and conditions and social relations, say, of the time.
We get to Buchholz's funeral. Moritz wants a better funeral than Buchholz, of course. Even though it's just said basically to brag a little bit because he has just told his competitors that how good he was because he knew already about this rise of the tariff. There's my favorite shot in here between. It's when the horse carriage is going in a wide shot throughout the town, and you see a little bit of the background and a long road behind. We can get to that. And there's a shot, I believe, the next shot after this establishing shot, you have, or this wide shot, you have a woman walking in the forefront, and in the background you have a goddamn car. It's running on the road behind her. But yeah, in the 18th century, we have automobile in the background.
Well, it was the Industrial Revolution.
Okay, pretty quick one.
Well, you got the industry and it got revolutionized. So there's your revolutionary car industry also.
Not only this moment, there's even a second moment where we see a car in the house window. Way too fast for a horse. It's now Anka handing Karol 2,000 rubles and says that she's in love. And nobody should be embarrassed of being in love. Next shot or scene is when Karol gets the news that Lucy is pregnant.
Anka is coming to Łódź also, and she says these words about not being ashamed of love. Is told just after she comes to Łódź to finally live there from Kurów. She also watches Łódź with her own eyes, and camera follows her eyes when she is traveling from Kurów to Łódź.
Also fascinating this next scene where Karol has some kind of a mental breakdown, or he goes way too far. He's talking about her to-be wife, that she has taken this factory of his into some kind of a hospital or asylum usage, and is being saying very bad words about this guy who was injured at his factory, and they have a kind of a fight about it, and the future wife is very offended.
She finally sees what kind of person Karol is. She sees that he's cold, but he's unloving, and it's a shock for her.
Max urges Karol to accept the loan. He says no, but later on he will accept it anyway because he has to succumb into this to get things going. Then there's some flying flower pots because Borowiecki is visiting the book lady, or Mada, and her father, mainly the father, because now, immediately after this previous scene, Karol is going to ask money from Mada's father, Müller. And we get to the palace of the Müller, and the cost of the palace was 100,000 rubles. He doesn't need it, but he keeps it only for appearances. So
he lives in his very small old cottage near the palace. And again, when Mada sees Karol, she makes this accident with the flower falling off the window, and it wasn't planned as well. So it was improvised after it fell down.
Oh.
So Mada's reaction is really natural. By this old cottage, we have Müller's wife, which has stayed a simple woman, shy woman who does not really want to wear all these diamonds and appear in the high society. So she just works in this old cottage and in the kitchen. And Mada is also wearing a very simple dress. But when her father decides to walk with Karol to the palace to show him the whole venue, she decides to wear a very rich and awful dress to show that she's like elegant lady. But to be honest, she looked better in this just previous dress.
I was wondering this performance when the flower falls from the window,
Yes.
because it seemed very, very, very natural, the reaction. Like it was a little bit of a delayed reaction, and it seemed completely genuine. And then I kept wondering why you would even make such of a shot scene to the film. So that kind of explains.
Yes, so they just decided to keep it, but also I think it fits here because it shows Mada's character a bit, that she's maybe a bit clumsy. Moritz borrows some money. He promises to get it back, but then he decides not to get it back at the point he's supposed to.
Oh God, that was really weird and confusing. And then we see the guy breaking the fourth wall, like out of nowhere, like a really weird moment for me, looking into the camera.
Yeah, it's a nice scene because it wasn't planned. It's just Wojciech Pszoniak, which plays Maurice. He was bored with waiting for the director to say stop, and like they were still like making it, but he wanted to stop, so he started to playing around, and the director decided to keep it.
Okay.
And he says that, yes, and he says that like the meaning is he doesn't give an explanation for this. Whatever you think of it, it's yours. Let's say.
I actually kind of hate the director for pulling that one off, because the fourth wall breaking moments in film usually are to signify either a specific plot point or a specific theme or motive within the movie, and that like Moritz's fourth wall break here is something I can believe has driven film students absolutely crazy when they have been trying to decipher what that fourth wall break actually means. And then now hearing that it's actually completely pointless and it's just something that that happened completely on accident, and director simply decided to keep on within the film. It's kind of a low blow against basically every film critic out there.
Or it's Andrzej Wajda's great moment where he suddenly forgot to make the cut in that moment and just published it, and then had to pretend that I meant it all along.
He could get rid of it in the post-production, but he didn't.
I definitely felt kind of a menace in that scene. I felt that now that this guy has been extremely ruthless, and he's so ruthless that he is actually addressing the audience like, haha, look at what kind of a bastard I am.
I was absolutely amazed because I wasn't expecting that also. So for me it was, and I've forgotten it. And it was, but I really liked it. It was like some kind of diabolic, maybe, hint in this that this is something that is like he can go beyond this reality, but in the kind of mischievous way. He appeared to me as a kind of a trickster in this position of a person who sees the camera and acts towards the camera and in the very presence of it, but as a clown, as a trickster.
Then again, at this point of the story, he still isn't that much of a trickster.
Mhm.
Well, like the moment we are talking about is when he borrows the 30,000.
That's why what amazed me, because it was so sudden and so like breaking the story and the climate.
Moritz indeed is not willing to pay the capital back that he got from Mr. Greenspan, but will agree to pay the 10% interest. And there's a quote, "You have a small fish in the head." I believe this is a very Polish saying.
Yes, yes. It's like it's in the book is exactly the same. You have small fish in your head. It's in Polish we say it's kiełbie we łbie, but you're kind of crazy and you don't know what you're doing. Kiełbie is a kind of fish, and the łeb is head, but not very polite way to say head. It's not vulgar. It's just not very official way of saying.
Yeah. Max said his father went crazy. Moritz tells he got the money. Yeah, man, there's a lot of money collecting here. So priest is coming to bless the factory. Yeah, so the priest blesses the factory. There is some very funny modern versions of this where we have seen in the news where a priest is blessing a McDonald's somewhere.
Again, still in Poland.
Still in Poland. Yeah.
Yes.
2019
Yes.
or so.
Yes. Maybe just stop here about commenting
Okay.
this.
Oops, yeah. Getting into dangerous territory. And then the feast follows. The priest gets properly drunk, or what seems like it. And the trio is being at their own factory. And they make this legendary quote. "I said that the factory would be, and here it is. Why would it burn?" Zucker wants Carol to swear by Holy Mary that nothing icky is going on. He's very determined to do anything for his new company, so he swears by it. People are waiting outside. So the situation involves that Carol is romantically or like financially involved with this lady, and now the husband, right, gets information about that and challenges Carol.
And he's also very afraid because his wife is eventually pregnant after 14 years of marriage. And if it's not his child, well, it's not very nice for him, right?
Yeah, at least here by the tables outside of the factory, there's Mada who gives this disappointed look when she sees Karol and Anka next to each other, which might be, is it now the first indication that something is definitely going on?
Yes, like Mada is definitely infatuated with Karol. And when she finds out that he has a fiancé, like which she shows up with officially, she's really disappointed.
Do you think it's possible that she didn't know that beforehand? I guess so. I guess it's possible.
It might be possible.
Now,
Yes, or maybe she didn't. Maybe she hoped for something more after he visited her and saw her palace and so on. She might be like disappointed because of just his behavior towards his fiancé, or by the fact that he has a fiancé. I can't tell now.
there is this open door rock cottage, let's say, where Karol meets in secret with the pregnant lady Lucy, and she's about to go to Berlin, actually, with the husband, but then she will use this location as an escape for her and Karol, or what she thinks would end that way, but doesn't. Yeah, he risks his future marriage, relationships, just to get to the end point, to what he wants. He gets loans and doesn't care about any of these people. Lucy leaves with the train to Berlin then, and Zucker hears that Karol is inside the train. And
He hears that from that crazy guy who is sometimes appearing in the book as well. And he appeared before in this pub.
True, that angry-looking guy.
Yes, and he acts like crazy, but he actually informs Zucker about that meeting that Lucy and Karol have in the train going to Berlin. So again, it's not in the book, because in the book the reason for the burnout of the factory is not known for sure.
Oh, wow.
As far as I know, I found it one of these things that were changed and made very clear in the movie although they were not entirely clear in the book, because it might also, this fire might also come from other factory owners endangered by the business of Karol Borowiecki.
In the film, everything is made clear as day with the quote, "Well, Mr. Borowiecki, you should have taken out an insurance."
Yes.
Train scene. Karol seems kind of uninterested in everything. He has boarded the train only for what I feel is kind of I guess he has certain feel of responsibility at this moment for the lady, and that's why he's here. Or who knows. Max is looking for Karol at Anka's, and Max tells Anka the truth about the rumors that are floating around about Mada Müller and Karol. So, and again, there's a car in the background window right here.
I was watching, the characters, so I didn't pay attention to, but
at least in my version, I believe Henrik has the same version. It happens at 2:29:15, so 2 hours 29 minutes 15 seconds.
Yeah, I might just not have noticed it. It might be there.
Yeah, Max is there in the close up, and you have a window in the background.
Yeah, it's really quick, like you blink and you miss it kind of a moment.
And the really funny thing is that how I found these cars in the picture, I believe. Well, for the first time that I saw it, it was just like 10 seconds, literally, before that. 10 seconds before that, I was thinking, oh, maybe there might be some bloopers, because they're shooting, of course, in 1975, so there might be cars then. And holy cow, there is a car in 10 seconds.
Yes. So it's a good intuition, maybe. You watched so many movies that you really predict when it's gonna happen.
Or maybe it happened before, so I was kind of subconscious about it. Yeah. Karol and Lucy are having some fun in the train. Well, Karol not so much. The acting is extremely over the top in this film right at this moment, and weirdly, Lucy has been dubbed in this moment.
Yes, it's also about Kalina Jędrusik. She was that kind of a woman, very expressive, very voluptuous, very she also had some men lovers, for example. So she was that kind of a woman which was seductive, which was really overacting. I think also in her life, she swore a lot, using bad words all the time. Yes, so it was also kind of how she was.
Henrik, what's the next scene?
I guess that would be the burning factory.
Correct. 10 points on a parrot mark, as we say in Finland.
Mm.
Yeah, so many people are running in flames. They were seem to be having fun with this, flame costumes. But many innocent people are getting dead because of this. There seem to be explosions in this factory. Anka realizes why the factory is burning when she gets near the factory and takes a quick look at Max. Seems to be so heartbroken, or I don't know, more like angry. Then Karol gets the news about the fire, and Lucy is kind of clueless here as well. Like, jaka fabrika? Moja fabrika, no? So, my factory.
Mine. Yeah, she's kind of so self-oriented that she doesn't even notices anything. I think during this train, she eats almost all the time. She's eating something. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, this lady sure knows how to take advantage of her class, splurging, taking it really to a disgusting level.
Yes.
She has access to everything, but she acts like a child with the food.
Exactly.
All right, standing in the ruins of the factory now, the culprit is found and gets some kicks from Max, but only laughs.
Culprit is this Boom Boom, this crazy guy who...
Oh, it's the same guy. Oh.
Yes, it's the same guy. Yes.
Oh, good point, yeah. Here we go with the horror music once again, and Anka gives away the ring, so does Karol. Karol seems to have no emotion whatsoever regarding the situation. Thereafter, trio is sitting at the table. Max blames Karol and his affairs for everything that happened, and fight!
Yes, they have a good clearing atmosphere fight.
Seems that they are very good friends because they were able to laugh it off in a way, and they repeat the quote, And now again they have nothing at all, which is just enough.
Yes, so but they also didn't lose anything eventually because they had nothing, so they had nothing to lose.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah, then again, Moritz actually did lose on this situation because the 30,000 that he got earlier, that was a loan, which he still has to pay back, and he had made the promise of the yearly 10% interest for that loan. And taking that loan the way how he did, like blindsiding the moneylender he did business with, that also caused him personal relationship to that person. So in that sense, when they make the notion that we didn't lose anything, that holds true for Max and Carol.
Sure, but I think they would find a way out of it as well as they always did. It's not the end of the movie, but again, we can see them few years after, and Moritz is still present in there.
Morris is, and the same moneylender is still with him, acting friendly. So yeah, whatever drift was caused between them by Moritz's actions, it did got amended eventually.
I think so. Even Carol got new ways to like deal with borrowings like this and like paying off his debts and even probably debts of Morris.
I was really surprised to see these guys still back in business, at least part of the old group there, and seems like they made some kind of what suggests to be some kind of a coalition between everybody, so the big bosses are now at the same table with some kind of a huge empire, which has taken over Łódź apparently so much that indeed they are willing to kill people. One reason, of course, being that the factory of Karol was burned to the ground before. He doesn't want to repeat the incident, and he's starting to be kind of a mafia boss around here.
Yeah, so I think this, because we can see Karol again after a few years when he's married to Mada, when he has a young son, and they have this meeting with the high society, but also there are some strikes outside. The machines have stopped working, and we can see it's very strange because before we could see factories always working, and with this with this noise also, so we can see it empty and silent, and people which are gathering like before the palace, where probably Karol is living here now. And he's the very respected member of the society.
He's at the head of the table, kind of suggesting that maybe he's running the whole show now.
Businessman takes a decision on whether to shut people or not. How come? Like now it's impossible, for example, that owner of the company could say that, oh, there are strikes, we need to shut people down. How?
Yeah, there is this very, very long kind of a dolly shot across the table, which takes like, I don't know, half a minute, and then he makes the decision that we have to get rid of this guy who just threw the rock inside the palace. Maybe you have some, cultural insight. Was there like a Łódź kind of a uprising against these Lochermensch monsters, or?
As far as I found, it's a revolution of 1905 in Poland.
Oh, what's the flag that the guy is holding, do you know? Or this cloth?
It's a red cloth, right? The one who holds down on the road. It's a communistic flag.
Communistic flag.
I suppose, I'm not sure, but I suppose that it was probably a tribute to Communistic Party because it was made in 1974, the whole movie. But people responsible for this revolution were mostly workers and people engaged in like workers' movements. So.
Yeah, I read that this film was accepted by the censors of the USSR because this was still not against communism. It was kind of actually supporting communism, at least at the end of the film, or being kind of neutral in that sense.
It was also, for me, it's definitely anti-capitalist.
Right, anti-capitalist.
Yes, because it shows the relations between capitalists like rich businessman and very poor rest of the world. The book ending is very different. It's there are no strikes. Karol is very burnt out. He works a lot. Magda is his wife. They have a child, a son, but he doesn't feel connected to her at all. He's unhappy. He works 1,000 or so hours a day. Doesn't have time for anything else. So he kind of his dreams came true, but he's definitely unhappy and he doesn't know what to do with it. And he meets Anka, who established a few years ago daycare home or care home for little children, and she has a purpose in her life. And he finds out that just working for himself and even making money, making millions of rubles is pointless if he doesn't work for anything and anyone but himself. So he decides to change, to transform. It's a very strange ending. It's a very strange ending in this book. I felt it's artificial and like false. But well, it's the end of the book. In the movie it looks very different.
Interesting.
Oh, I have one more curiosity about the movie, or even two, about this orgy in the Kessler's palace when there was this tiger.
Yeah.
So the tiger didn't want to cooperate. It was rather bored and tired and just slept in its cage. So they needed to make another shots in the zoo with another tiger, just afterwards. Stunt women who were playing these girls, like prostitutes and so on, they probably drank too much and they really went much too far into erotic scenes. And much of the majority of it needed to be just cut off because it was too much for not a porn movie.
Yeah, I saw the tiger as once again a metaphor for kind of Łódź and its people.
Yes, I think so. Yes.
Looks like Henrik is now the only one who has the list of the favorite this and that, the quickies. Okay. Henrik, do you want to lead us in the quickies?
Yeah, I can do that if everybody is ready.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So, with that out of the way, I guess it would be the quickies.
Oh.
Right?
I suppose so, if we have to. Roles have switched.
Yeah, the roles have switched. We are going through a film about capitalism and you are stealing from my playbook. To stay on with the tradition, we can start with the first one. The best image not to exemplify any film we have covered in this podcast. No. Your favorite performance in today's film?
It's not very clear-cut, but Karol gets a lot of screen time and he has facial expressions, so Karol.
That he does. Like, definitely the most screen time, and is also, I would say, the most expressive on the main trio of the film. So, yeah, Daniel Olbrychski, also from my end.
He's probably one of the best film actors. Many scenes are so overplayed, so I'm not a big fan of that, really.
I don't know. In my opinion, Daniel also goes quite overboard quite often, especially in the dance hall scene, or basically any scene where he's supposed to be ecstatic to be around with the ladies. His facial expressions are just all over the place.
That's true. Maybe I just kind of ignored that because I thought it's his kind of this yucky personality that he wants to be a little bit. He wants to be this playboy, definitely very artificial appearance. Favorite performance, Magda, from this film?
Wojciech Pszoniak, Moritz.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes, for me it's the one.
Yeah, for you, Moritz. Okay, I thought that the actor of Moritz was, it was once again one of those over performances here.
He was the second best.
Okay, maybe. Well, then again, it's his expression to a point. Maybe I'm just used to it.
Yeah, that's what happens a lot in this podcast, that you You have watched some film 500 times and then you come into this podcast and somebody breaks down all of your good memories about a film and makes you look at it in a completely not good way.
Yeah, that is the reason why you should never actually cover films you actually like in any film podcast.
Yeah, Henrik has like ruined half of the Bond movies for me already here, in a way.
Still waiting to ruin the other half for you. But yeah, the favorite scene. Well, for me, that would be the nighttime factory burning. Like the scene when the people are running down the street covered in flames and Anka is making her way towards the factory and there is all that chaos.
For me, definitely the scene where Mr. Horn goes berserk at Buchholz.
Okay. I think the scene in the theater, because it's so grotesque and it kind of reveals the demonic nature of the whole situation. Yeah, that I would pick it. And it's also the very first scene I always think of when I think of Ziemia obiecana.
Yeah.
So how about favorite quote then? Karri has been on a rampage here, giving us lots of legendary quotes from the film. So if you would have to pick just one of them, what would it be?
I thought that I have to go back to the Mr. Horns versus Buchholz once again, because the quote is kind of funny. It seems that for a moment Mr. Horn is losing his self-confidence and he just keeps on rambling about the same thing. And so it goes like this. I'm not interested if you're patient or not. I don't need to know if you're patient. Stop interrupting me, you German lout. I am speaking now. Horn is speaking, and you will listen to me as long as I am standing here and talking. Shut up! Now I am speaking. Please don't... I warn you, I don't need to know if you're patient or not. It's all the same to me. Don't interrupt me. I can see no reason why I should be silent when you're talking. I'm not interested in whether you're patient or not. Farewell.
Yeah, the whole tantrum where Horn goes over again, stating that he should not be silenced, and that he's the one speaking now, and actually doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
On my end, well, it is the most repeated quote from the film. I have nothing, you have nothing, and he has nothing. That means together we have enough to start a factory.
I was convinced that you would go with the... What was it like? I promised us a factory, and now it's there. Who needs an insurance? Who's gonna burn down our factory?
No, I'm way too paranoid to ever pick up a quote where there is such a disregard towards insurances.
Well, for me, probably what we are most familiar with in Poland, again, what Henrik chose, is I have nothing, you have nothing, you have nothing, so we have enough to establish a factory.
Yeah, okay. Grotesque characters, grotesque Flick Lab hosts, so it's time, I guess, for the next category.
Yeah, the grotesque favorite kill.
For me, it's the second guy who is running down the street in flames.
How the hell can it be the second guy? Like, what is so special about the second guy?
Because you can take it you can take that moment once. When it comes twice, it was kind of humorous to me.
Okay, that's interesting, because when it comes to this film, there's just one correct answer, and that is the Malinovska and Kessler 2-in-1 gore shot.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Because for me, it's this Malinowski's death with this factory owner together in the steam machine engine. It's like you can see that these body parts are artificial.
Yeah, and you can even see after the head has been thrown out by the machine, it's rolling on the floor. You can see that the head is trying to roll once again towards the machine, kind of go underneath the floorboards, and something just pushes the head back up.
Yes, yeah, there was something like that.
Silence of the labs.
Yeah, it's the random confusing question. Do you want to take it or will I?
Oh, that's the category I don't understand, so maybe you would start. And then...
No, it's
Nobody understands it.
It's simply, just a question for me and Karri, so that we have to answer to some question and we stop thinking about the film when providing the answer.
Okay.
Henrik, if you have something on the ready, just go.
So, Karri, would you be up to starting a factory? Because I have nothing and you have money, so how about it?
Who says I have money? Who says I want to build a factory?
Yeah, you are the one in the working life.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I prefer something more remote. I would build a digital factory. I could make a video game about this movie.
Nice.
So-
It's a nice idea to make a video game, Promised Land.
So you would want to make a video game about a movie that actually deals with subject matter that how industrialization and machines are replacing manual labor and driving people out of their jobs. And in order to make this game, you would start a digital factory that would not have any employees. Did I just got this one right, Karri?
No, you would
No,
play
but
with.
a video game needs illustrators, it needs programmers, I suppose. It needs plenty of people.
Nah, Karri's just gonna digitalize all that and outsource it to the AI.
No, and I would go more traditional route. This is a historical period anyway in this film. So, okay, we would have Karol Borowiecki as the main character, and Borowiecki goes to his factory, and he has this kind of a whip that he can use for the people working at his factory. Of course, once you proceed with Karol Borowiecki in the game, then you get more characters like the Dirty Kessler. But also there is this problem that you can't release this game because it's getting too crazy.
Yeah, also, dear listeners, please take note that when pushed on the subject matter, would Karri just digitalize the whole factory and not hire any workforce to work for him, Karri opted to describe the game itself. But so, Karri, the first image that comes to mind.
Magda dropping the flower pot.
Okay. In my end, the first image is apparently the dance hall suicide. When there's the one dude just lying on the floor and everybody just looking at the guy and thinking that, yeah, apparently he has just shot himself in the face.
You know, honestly, for me it's kind of interesting how people get stuck into some frame of a film. For example, now I'm stuck in the flower pot shot, and then I suppose you are most of the time having this shot in your mind. Like, what's the reason why? So here we are.
Maybe because it was incidental.
Probably.
Maybe.
Yeah. So it looked a bit odd in comparison to other.
Yeah, or it will just reveal more secret or not so secret parts of Henrik's psyche.
I most likely, after the end of the run of the Flick Lab, I suddenly find myself locked up into some sanitarium. we have been listening your comments in this movie podcast, and it's our estimate that you need professional help immediately.
And for me, as I told before, it was this scene at the theater.
Yeah. So, Henrik, what kind of a professional help is coming next?
I think as a professional help, I'm skipping over which image best exemplifies this film because I hate that category. Okay. And instead we are asking what took us out of the film.
It's too long and a little bit babbly, in my opinion.
That it is. That was also my main problem with this one. Also, some of the camera angles were a bit too artistic for my taste, seeing what they were trying to say. Like at times it works. So like, for example, in the dance hall, in the close-ups on the person's faces, like Magda pointed out, it makes them look grotesque and kind of hideous. And in those moments, yeah, the weird camera angles and that extreme close-up from the cinematography, it does work out and it helps to create the effect. But there were some shots that I felt were a bit too artistic. And I don't know, just kind of rubbed me the wrong way altogether.
The kind of a rounded lady at the theater swinging.
That was one of them. Also, the Morris's fourth wall hand wave was something that I didn't appreciate when I saw it.
Yeah, the swing seemed kind of redundant. Maybe it was something fancy going on once again.
I just kept waiting when the swing is gonna break and the lady is gonna fly through the air and land in the audience.
Right, it doesn't go into fruition of any kind. Magda?
For me, it was maybe this kind of making some aspects flatter, not but deepened, and like saying everything, like not leaving anything to the imagination. Like it's all said here. And also this, we say that it's in Polish, we say that it's narysowane grubą kreską. So draw with the thick line, and it's like that. It's if it's a caricature, it's a caricature. It's like the characters have just one main aspect, and they are in most cases they do not have much more in themselves.
Apart from the ending, it's quite self-explanatory. Yeah. Would you say that the book is also less clear in less clear lines in the story?
Yes, and the book has like deepened psychology of characters and not that clear distinctions between who's good and who's not good. Yeah, something like that. I'm the last person to say that that the movie needs to follow a book in this flavor way. Each is like the piece of a different art, so they do not have to be the same, and they do not have to point out the same aspects. But in this, and also this like drawing with this thick line here in the movie makes sense at some point. But anyways, I would probably appreciate some more psychology here than the caricature. Yeah.
With that sentiment, it bears to remember that this was supposed to be Wojciech's kind of an entry film to Hollywood and into global markets. He was really banking on this movie being the one that gets him Hollywood directing jobs and makes him makes his name known in most especially in America. And that's kind of explains why this was the book he decided to film. The book covers that, or the story is about money. And Wojciech felt that was very American theme, something that can easily break through in America. And that might also tie into what you said about why everything is made so clear, why everything is constantly being explained, and there is not that level of psychology that maybe Wajda didn't believe enough in American audiences to kind of keep himself from constantly handholding the audience.
Yeah, probably. Well noted. But as I said before, to some point it makes sense, and it makes this movie really powerful also in expression.
Yeah. Sadly, the American conquest didn't plan out because the movie got flagged with the claims of anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
No surprise. Even though wrongly.
I was thinking about it very strongly, but I suppose it's not against any nationality. It's just about money. And
that is the claim that Wajda himself has made, and those who defend the film. And I'm willing to believe that he wasn't aiming to be anti-Semitist, but I can see where that argument stems from.
Yeah,
Isn't
sure.
that just depicting the times? Just simple as that.
This anti-Semite accents were very strong in the book, like stronger, not everywhere, but it was stronger, and Wajda actually made it not that strong. But yeah, of course, it's understandable. Yeah, but somebody might found it in it. I think all people are presented there in not a very, very favorable way.
Yeah, that is the case.
Yes, it's not very flattering to anyone.
No, they are all quite horrible people.
Yes, maybe but Anka.
Yeah. Not counting in Anka.
Yes.
to see where the claim that the film would be anti-Semitist stems from, there is still the kind of a take that if you use certain type of imagery that is extremely loaded and has a strong historical subtext behind it, it's easy to kind of offend people by using that imagery. I'm not just saying that you shouldn't use it. Like, you have the right to use it. The film has the right to use it. I
understand that.
Yeah, I'm not like faulting the film for how the Jewish characters act in the film and the imagery the film uses. But at the same time, I can very well understand why others were offended by it.
Of course, I understand it as well. Yeah, it uses stereotypes, and it uses it a lot. So that's, yeah, of course, not very flattering stereotypes.
Yeah, still not making the case that Wajda would have been an anti-Semitist. That's not the reading I got from the film. Just to make it clear.
Mm-hmm.
But from anti-Semitism to our next quickie, what put you in?
Naked models. No, I'm going with the history of Łódź in general that you get with this whole history lesson package in this film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I can think from this film. It was actually really hard to figure out what it is. I mean, because there's not like this high point that I could think of.
I would also say that it's Łódź. Like, it's actually the greatest performance in this movie is Łódź. So even not Wojciech Pszoniak, but Łódź itself as a hero of the movie.
Yeah.
On my end, it was the three mains, the main characters, and also those shorts about the industrialized woods.
Good for you.
That's all he said. But the scissors of sacrilege. What would each one of us cut from the film, if anything?
I would try to probably reduce some of the characters if I could, or I would definitely make the character introductions more heavy, like you could figure out who is who, because sometimes you don't get the names until very late in the film, and you might confuse the characters, at least I did at some point. I would make it much tighter because it's overly long for me, for the point that it's making.
I too would shorten the film. I at its current form, the version we saw, it ran almost for 3 hours. And during that time, you really do get the message that capitalism is bad. But on top of that, I would also kind of make it take a deeper look at capitalism, like how capitalism works, the machinations of capitalism, and how these characters really benefit from capitalism. Like on a mechanical side, how does this act? For example, how does this act? How does the tariffs affect the price of wool, and how does that affect these characters? How do these three main characters game the system? I would kind of pay more focus on that.
But Henrik Wajda is not making a statement about capitalism, as I see it. He's making a statement about the Industrial Revolution. Oh, okay, and capitalism, like how that turn of events, not specifically capitalism, but what was happening at the time, during that revolution to those people.
But well, to me, capitalism and Industrial Revolution go kind of hand in hand.
But I didn't see it as like anti-capitalist or anything like that.
To me, on the other hand, it did read as an anti-capitalist film. Like to me, this was more about anti-capitalism than even about the Industrial Revolution itself.
Yeah, in a way, kind of like a historical record.
It was like a political writing, like a commentary to the situation. The whole movie.
Yeah, this is the moment where we and Karri have seen this film through a completely different lens. To Karri, this is kind of a more documentaristic take and a historical record, and to me, this is more a tale of fiction and a depiction of an anti-capitalist sentiments. So
I just thought that it's trying to tell the story of how Industrial Revolution just was kind of like a painstaking phase in the Polish history. Plus, this was the kind of film that was easy to go past the censors because of obvious reasons.
Yeah, I think it definitely has this historic aspect.
Okay, next therapy session, Henrik.
Well, this one will be kind of the toughest one. I would guess you really know you're watching The Promised Land when ...
You really know you're watching The Promised Land when you're suffocating in coal.
When you see these three heroes, like Karol Borowiecki, Moritz, and Max together.
Okay, and I would also add that you really know it very much at this moment. You can just go outside in Warsaw and take a little of a walk. Too much coal in the air. But yeah, if you want to get into the same feelings of those times, I believe, then go ahead. Visit Warsaw. I'm sorry, Warsaw. I love you, Warsaw, but Jesus Christ.
What's so bad about Warsaw?
Air quality.
Yeah, but don't you guys have the air purification units for that?
Oh, wow, I wish they did. And even if they do, we're suffocating.
Karri, do you live in Warsaw at the moment? Are you living in Warsaw?
Yeah, I live in the center of Warsaw.
Ah, nice.
Yeah, I tried to go back to Finland because they offered a work, but it was a nightmare, and I quit after the first day and came back to Poland.
So sorry to hear it didn't work with Finland, but
Oh no, I'm super
you're
happy.
in Poland.
I was kind of suffocating in the pure air of Helsinki. I mean, it's a small city, and Helsinki is so small.
Yeah. Helsinki, air, and pure. All in the same sentence.
Definitely, in comparison. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was hoping that you wouldn't notice and I could simply skip this one because you guys took all the fun out of the whole category, which for the record is Karri's invention. So all the blame goes to him. But
actually, it's invented by another podcast, but we don't talk about it.
So in the capitalist film, Karri also steals from other podcasts. But you two gave way too professional and way too deep in the film answers. I had to kind of rethink my answer for this question, but I would say that you really know you're watching The Promised Land when the dance hall scene and the grotesque nature of human condition hits you in the face.
Yeah, grotesque in many ways. Plastic body parts.
So how about the 3 adjectives to describe The Promised Land?
Do they need to be adjectives or maybe they can be nouns?
Yeah, you are a guest in the podcast. You can cheat and just use nouns.
Because no adjectives come to my mind now, but I'd say it's a masterpiece. It's about Łódź, of course.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit hectic sometimes. Adjective at the end. It shows the hectic nature of the city and this industrial revolution as
well. That it does. And that's something that the cinematography really does push through quite well and quite strongly, with the constant cutting to the close-ups on other people's faces and using a lot of quick cuts here and there. On my adjectives would be artistic for its presentation, horrifying because of those grotesque close-ups that are used every now and then, and even quite often in the film, and topical because, well, the same problems that the film presents here, like the getting rid of the manual workforce, automating the workforce, the environmental damage that industrialization has on nature and in people. Those are still all themes that apply even today's world.
So it's kind of up to date.
In my opinion, it's up to date. Then again, if you make a film about capitalism, it's quite easily for that film to be up to date, since we still live in a capitalistic world.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that it's very unscrupulous or like ruthless. It's frightening. It has scenes of horror at random places. And mood-wise, it's kind of mild. From beginning to end, there are of course those main points that happen. The factory catches fire and so on. I feel that it's not trying to be very strong, which is once again supporting my argument for this documentary-like feel in my mind.
Yeah. So we are down to 2 questions. The first one being, did you guys check your watches while watching the film?
I did.
I did, but I always do. It doesn't mean anything.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like I can't focus anymore for 2 hours and 18 minutes. I'm the victim of social media in that aspect.
Unfortunately, because you have to watch this film for the Flick Lab, and then you start watching, and after 10 minutes you're like, oh my god, how much still I have to go through. I had to check my watch, because there's so much information and so much to understand to prep for this episode, unlike what Henrik was actually saying before we started recording.
What was I saying before we started recording?
You said that it was really clear cut and there was not much to research. It was more like a big job for you to go through the film.
Well, you know, you can just blame yourself. You are the one who insisted on your own personal end to research Industrial Revolution before tackling a film about Industrial Revolution.
Doesn't sound very far-fetched to research.
No, it's easy and small topic.
I was discussing this actually with my friend. He was asking, what am I doing? Well, you know, I am...
With your life.
No, it was like, I need to read like 50 pages about Industrial Revolution. And then he goes like, why the hell would you do that? Podcast?
Yeah, that's the excuse today. Just try to come up with a new one next week when you are reading Das Kapital.
This is like self-inflicted gunshots.
These pretty much are like... But you know, it's always good way to suicide is doing a film podcast. you can really alienate your friends and relatives by doing this.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, if you want to cut connections with your mom, you can start doing a podcast.
Yeah, I don't even remember what my mom looks like anymore.
It's a way to grow up, you know. You feel too much connected to your mother.
Yeah, and for the record, I too did check up my watch when watching this film.
Thanks for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Sharing is caring. And talking about sharing, it's the last category, and I guess the hardest one, because I get the feeling that me and Karri might be on opposite ends. When it comes to this one, would you guys recommend the film?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Would you recommend Industrial Revolution?
Definitely. Connecting people.
Yeah, but would you recommend today's movie?
Like mentioned like 5 times already by me in this podcast, it's overly long. I feel that the performances are too over the top many times. I feel that even though the film has a structure, it kind of doesn't have any like high points. It's very like stable in its mood and atmosphere. I would say it has a lot of babble, as mentioned, which is of course this documentarian thing once again. Then again, it makes very good points about like historical moments of Poland, and it's a very important movie because it's directed by Andrzej Wajda. So what can I say? I would give a lukewarm recommendation because I'm not the biggest fan of this film, but I can respect what it's doing, and it's definitely a film to watch once, even if you might not enjoy the way that the story is told in the film. It has great quotes, great dialogue at times, strong characters. It's a good blend of actors. Henrik.
Yeah. Holy shit! Because I feel the same way. Same way about the film. This was very to me too, and I was actually I was dreading this question because I was certain that you would have liked it, and I knew that Magda does consider this one a masterpiece, which would then make me kind of the asshole and the bad guy of today's episode.
No.
Because
it's say what you have to say.
Henrik.
I'm also
Here it comes.
I'm so goddamn sorry.
Here it comes.
But I would recommend it. No, I'm just kidding it. I can't recommend it. No recommendation from my end, unfortunately. And this is something that may purely be on, me not really, for me being a Finn, me not getting that Polish historical text and not seeing the Polish history and not connecting with that side of the film, and not really seeing the movie like Karri sees it as a documentarist take on a historical event. To me, this was an anti-capitalistic movie very strongly, and on that note, I did feel that this one didn't go deep enough into capitalism. This kind of, to me, this was very much an artist's take on capitalism. Like you see these big obvious entities, big obvious things, most definitely things that kind of show to you that capitalism is bad and it leads into moral corruption. There are the machines that rip people's arms off. There are the corporate magnates that sexually assault the workforce, and there is that taking the purity, that pure factory worker who then gets ravaged by the corporate magnate. And to me, that's all kind of a too big. In a sense, I've seen that kind of 100 times already. It's like the modern art pieces, which are anti-capitalist.
Actually, this probably happened a lot in the this sexual assaults on workers.
It most definitely did happen, and it also happens today. Like I'm not saying that's not what happens. Also, the faulty machinery causing injury to workforce, that is also something that has been a problem with factories and with machines, and is even today, as we, for example, the Human Rights Watch and other sources give you these reports on how the workers have been injured by poor work environments, and also reports on all these malpractices on factories. But that still wasn't kind of a deep enough depiction of capitalism to me. That was still kind of a too simplistic. And too much the easy marks, the easy images, the kind of even cliche images that everybody uses when they criticize capitalism in a movie. And I was constantly expecting this one to go deeper into the capitalism and how capitalism works. And I didn't feel that this ever actually did it.
Yeah, there is the difference, because I didn't see it as primarily as an anti-capitalist piece like you did. And I certainly understand that since you haven't probably ever gone to the city of Łódź, you haven't seen these old factories there made of these bricks, getting into the vibe and... well, I've been living in Poland for 4 years, so I have like a different point of view to that. I can understand why this would not really appeal to international audience, even though it's about industrial revolution. There's a lot of context missed there if you're not Polish or live in Poland or have some connection to Poland.
Well, maybe I'm just not objective as well as a Polish woman. Yeah, but kind of I like it showing not the noblemen, because we had a lot of noblemen, and all the literature or a big part of literature was depicting noblemen and what they are doing and so on. But it's about businessmen who come from different environments and different backgrounds, and about also these poor people. And I also like the way it showed the city itself. Maybe I'm also used to this kind of acting, and I actually thought that it's the quality of this movie as well. Like this expressive acting means something and is used to show something.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the film per se, but I felt that it was kind of bland is a kind of a hard word because there can be several types of interpretations for the word bland, but just the mood was kind of monotonous in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, understood. Like it's, I'm really happy to hear some opinions from outside Poland. So from people who are not really always, who do not know the background and who do not know all of this historical and political burden we all have in Poland. And the context, and who do not the context, because it's also it's good for me to hear it.
Yeah, but even with all this said, I would still recommend it on this podcast, and I would recommend it definitely for anyone because if you have any interest in Poland, then please check out the film. It's kind of your responsibility. For Finns, it would be the responsibility to watch The Unknown Soldier, even though you might not be the biggest fan. But it's something that everybody has to goddamn watch. And Henrik is raising the axe.
Immediately. Like, it's a good thing that you live in Poland. You motherlandless swine.
I was kidding, I'm the biggest fan, but the new version. Oh, oops. I don't know why this took so long.
Well, because it's a 3-hour movie.
True, yeah. I'm not waiting forward to our Lord of the Rings episodes if we ever get to.
We don't do those. That's where I draw the fucking line. Thank you, Magda, for joining us.
Thank you a lot for the invitation and for the fruitful conversation we had. I hope.
No,
so it was.
Thank you for coming to our aid, and once again being a magnificent goddamn ability to speak. Magnificent quest.
Thank you very much.
All right, and you can try to sexually assault us on our social media pages: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. You can start your own industrial revolution by watching this film if you didn't already, and join the challenge of watching 20 films from 20 different countries, which is the challenge that is going throughout the year 2019. At the end of the year, me and Henrik will be completely wasted. But apart from that, we'll invite one of our listeners to talk about these 20 films, because there probably will be only one listener who has gone through those films at the end of the year. But surprise me, dear listeners. All right, I'm out of here. See you later.
Until next week.